Hey guys, welcome back to another video today, to another dev blog. I hope that you guys have been doing great, doing wonderful, doing great, and ready to see what's next in store for this dev blog. um, yeah, I'm ready. So just a quick recap that I did last dev blog was to actually start getting the functionality in, right? I started getting the level in, started showing off all the grids, be able to place plans, to be able to highlight the individual cells or grid and that current area that my mouse is hovering. um, and I think that's about it. I feel like I'm missing something. No, yeah, that's basically that's about it. So in this video I'll be showing a little bit more that I wanted to do, and be able to have a collection of suns, right? um, I'll be spawning the sun points that you'll be collecting, having the plants, or at least the majority of the plants, to do their thing, like sunflowers to shoot a sun, pea shooters to shoot, the mines and the cherry bombs to explode, and also making the grid to also fade in, like in the original game. As you play, as you progress to the level, each of the columns will start rolling in and be able to make the playing field a little bit bigger. So that's something that I wanted to start working here as well. So so yeah, I have nothing else to say, and we can just straight in and jump on it. Yeah, let's do it, guys. Let's go. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to tackle is to work on the functionality of when you collect sun, or when sun gets deducted from your inventory due to when you either collect a sun or you place a plant on the grid, and which causes you to lose some sun, right, due to the cost. And the first step that I go about this is to work on the button for each of the plants, to have a disabled state, due to the fact that when you don't have enough sun, it's going to have that button disabled, or if you do have enough sun, it will keep that button enabled, right? So once I hook that up, I start working on the functionality of when to call this disabled function, animation, right? And this is done on the C++ code. I created a function that gets called on the blueprint, or gets implemented in the blueprint. And this function gets called when you do an action, either when you collect sun or when you deduct a sun. And I start hooking this up, cleaning up the UI, the blueprints and all that to make this work. And once this function gets implemented, it calls the UI, iterates through all the buttons and says, hey, do I have enough sun for this button? And if I don't, it calls the disable state, and if it does have enough, it'll keep the button enabled. And after I have that hooked up, I start working on the UI for the amount of suns that you have collected, and to be able to show up on the screen. And once I have that hooked up, you now can see that once I place the sunflower, it gets deducted from the amount of sun that I have initially, right? I start with 50 and then it goes back to 0. So cool. So now that I have this part of the functionality working, I have the deduction working. The next step is to start working on the addition when you collect sun. All right, so how I go about this is that I actually need a sun to collect in the game. So I start working on the actual sun, working on the material for it to actually make it look like an actual sun, and has this kind of glow on it, right? So I start working on that, messing around with the shaders, and then I start working on getting it to be collidable with the ground. I had some issues at first when it was colliding. It was going through the ground and all that, so I had to make some updates to the collision responses and all that. And then I start working on getting that trail for the sun, because it makes it kind of cool, right? So as it falls down or it starts moving, it creates this trail effect behind it, and it makes this, I feel like this makes it a pretty cool little visual effect on the sun. So I start working on the I have no idea how to pronounce this, but Niagara particle system, to work on this to emit this trail and I start messing with some of the colors to make it look making sure that it looks good and all that. And now you can see, like, look at this pretty cool trail effect that I have here. It looks pretty cool. So now that I have that trail effect working, I'll start working on getting the getting actually work getting the C++ to actually on C++ code to spawn this sun, so that I can be able to call it at any time. And I start working on setting it up and making sure it works, and adding an impulse on this to so that when it spawns, it shoots at a random direction. So here I go about testing it and seeing how it looks and making sure it feels good, right? So once I get this part done, I start working on getting this work spawning from. This is actually going to be the global sun that spawns at, I don't know, maybe every 5 seconds or so, I guess you can call it, right? So instead of spawning at 0, 0 or at the first cell, I needed to spawn somewhere in the center of the grid. So I start working on getting that randomized around the center of the grid, and start working on some of the blueprints, cleaning that up, and calling this function that will spawn the sun at a certain interval. And here I go about doing this, and it made the input super high, and it just shot down crazy on the ground. And after some fixes and all that, now you can start seeing, like, hey, look at that, it starts jumping out from the ground. And I guess you can start seeing that this is gonna be like the first phase of the sunflower. It's gonna be spawning from the origin of the sunflower. So I guess this is like the first iteration of it, and I'll keep that at a later use, because I'm working on on getting this to spawn in the center of the grid. And look at that, it looks like a meteor of suns coming down from the sky. And yeah, I think this is looking pretty good. So I just gotta start working on getting the timer working. But the next step that I wanted to do is for you to start collecting the sun, right? And I'm gonna use the mouse direction of this, I'm gonna use the mouse to start collecting the sun. So when the mouse is near the sun, you start considered like collected, right? And right now, once the mouse is near the sun, it starts collecting from the first cell. I'm using this as a test and making sure it's actually working. But after I get this in a good place, yeah, this is actually looking pretty good. So when the mouse is over the sun, it gets triggered as, hey, it is time for you to get collected, and it will all go straight into the origin, which is the first cell. And I start updating the UI of the amount of sun that you have collected, right? Because I want this, so when you collect the sun, I want the sun to actually collect on the direction of where the UI of the inventory of suns that you have collected. So I start updating the UI a little bit and trying to find a way to actually get the position of this button or this UI, so that I can actually use this 2D position and convert it to world space. And then once I have that implemented, I can then collect it, and it will all start shooting straight into the direction of wherever the UI of the sun of your inventory of suns, right? So as you can see, they all shoot down from this direction, and it looks pretty cool. This is my main goal. So right now I'm moving the camera, and I'm gonna double check that it's actually working, right? I gotta double check, because eventually I'm gonna have the camera move horizontally a little bit over time in the future. And as you can see, this is actually looking pretty good. I'm gonna test it one more time and see if this is in a good place. And yeah, so I got this in a good place, right? And now I have the deduct sun working, And now I have the sun being collected as when you hover over the sun, and it all gets shot into the direction of the UI of the inventory of suns that you have. So yeah, this is looking pretty good, and it's time to go to the next step. The next step is to start working on the plants and getting their actions working, right? For the sun to shoot out or spit out suns, and the pea shooters to start shooting, and all the plants to do their thing, right? So that's the next step. Okay, so the next is to start working on the actual functionality for the plants to do their thing. The first one that I will start working on is is the sunflower. The sunflower, uh, its functionality is to produce sun and be able to spawn the sun so the player can collect it. And that's the first thing that I start jumping in on. I start working on using the same functionality I did before. I mentioned it earlier that I wanted to use the same way as I was testing out the global sun, right? I mentioned that I wanted to use this for the sunflower as well. So I'll start working on that using the same using the same function. I made that a little bit more centralized so that you don't have to have like multiple spawning of the sun in multiple areas in the code. So I centralized a little bit so the global sun and also the sun that produces from the sunflowers is using the same function. And after I start hooking all of that stuff in, the sunflower start producing the sun. As you can see, as once I place the sunflower on the grid, it starts producing sun, and I'm able to collect it and all that stuff. And yeah, so that's one step down for the sunflower. Sunflower is done. The next one is start working on the pea shooters. The pea shooter, the original, like the green one, you start shooting peas. I guess you can call them peas, right? So with the peas, I ended up using the same like sphere model that I used for the sun, just that it's not going to be glowing, right? The regular pea shooters, it shoots like green peas. So I made this material that's actually going to be green for the peas, and have this pea shooter to shoot. I started working on that first. And once, as you can see, once I place the pea shooter on the grid, you can see that it starts shooting like crazy and all that. And I start working on the visuals as well, since it's gray, and I start actually making it look like the color they should be. And after that, I start working on the snow pea shooter as well. It functions the same way as the pea shooter, so I use the same code. I use the same class, since it does basically the same thing. Yeah, so that's two down. The pea shooter and the snow pea shooter done right away. They're in a good spot. The next one that I wanted to work on is actually the mine. The mine functions a little bit different. So when you spawn the mine and drop it into the playing field, it burrows underground for a bit until it's ready. It takes, I don't know, I haven't taken how long it takes, maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds, maybe 20. It does take a while actually in the actual original game. It might be 15 seconds maybe at most. And then once it's ready, it pops out of the from underground, and it's now on the surface, and it's like light at the pointy top of its head. It starts flickering, right? It's just showing that, hey, I'm ready to destroy zombies. Let's go. So that's why I wanted to work on this. As you can see, I start once I start placing the mine into the playing field, it burrows down underground, and then after it's ready, it will start blinking its color on the top. Right now it looks kind of orange, so I wanted to see if I can make it more reddish, and I kind of am trying to make it more reddish, but then it starts showing like orangey, like and yellowish, and I'm gonna need to figure out if there's a way to make it more blinky red instead. But yeah, I'm also debating right now. When I burrows on the ground, I'm actually moving its position, but I'm debating if I want to do this in like an animation instead and make it go up once it's ready. You use purely animations. I'm debating on that, but either way, it works. It just depends which direction you want to use. So well, I'll debate on see what direction I want to use with that. I may just leave it as is, but it is what it is, you know. And the last one that I want to work on is the cherry bomb. It functions similar to the mine, just that the mine actually keeps checking, right, and checking its surroundings until a zombie is nearby and then it explodes. But when it comes to a cherry bomb, once you place it in the field, after a few seconds it explodes right away, even if there's no zombies nearby. So it's kind of like you threw a grenade, right? So I kind of do use similar functionality of the mine, just that once you place it on the field, after a few seconds it will then do like a sphere cast near that is nearby the cherry bomb. And it's actually this sphere cast is bigger than the actual mine. I think the mine is actually just a little bit in front of it, like maybe a cell away or half a cell, but the mine is actually a little bit bigger and it can do a little more damage. I might actually play the original game. I don't remember if it actually does it and kills zombies in other columns. That's actually a good thing to test out. I'll have to double check on that if it kills zombies that are. I'm pretty sure it does. I think it does kill zombies in other columns as well. But the mine is actually just in front of it. So, but yeah. So once you can see that, once I place it on the field, you can see that it explodes. It gives out this particle boom effect, right? Dust effect or whatever you want to call it, for both the mine and the cherry bomb. And yeah, so this is basically kind of done with the with the plan functionality. I still have one more, and that is the chomper, but I will work on that later on, once I have the zombies actually working in here. So I'll leave that towards the end. But yeah, so majority of the plans here, like let's say 90% of them are completely done, and we can start moving on to the next part. The last thing that I wanted to work on is to get this roller working, right? The first step that I went with this was to create a material that would make the columns or the cells or the individual grids to fade in, and so that I can make this roller work and make it look good. As in the original game, for those that played it, I'm pretty sure the majority of you guys have played it, is that when you start the game and start the level, you initially start with 3 rows, and as you progress through that level, the outer columns will start appearing in, and this rollers will come in, this grass rollers will come in and will go across the columns to the other side and unroll that column for you. So that's what I wanted to work on here. So I worked on a material, and I started working on that roller, right? I started working on this controller that will handle all of this functionality for this roller, to start from the beginning of the column and then roll to the other side and then start fading in the cells. I did have some initial issues with this roller. When I made this in Blender, I made the origin not be in the center of the roller but at the bottom of the roller, and as you were and the reason why I made it this way was because it will make it easier for me. At first, what I thought it will make it easier for me, so that I don't have to like reposition this position at the beginning, and all I had to do was roll it to the other side. And another thing that, as it's rolling to the other side, is also scaling down, right? So it makes it look like it's getting smaller since it's unrolling. So that's the reason why I moved it from to the bottom, the origin, but that did not work, as you saw earlier right now, that the roller it created an issue. And the issue was that if you were to rotate it, it will rotate around and in a circle rather than rotating from its origin, and that created some issues with that. So I had to revert it back and make the origin to be in the center of the roller, and that ended up making it work easier. I just had to do some basic math to make it work, so that because when you scale it from the center, it scales it from the top, from the bottom, and the sides, so the actual model. And since there's no physics here, or at least for that roller, I didn't. It looked like it was floating in the air when it was scaling across the column, and that's not what I wanted to make it do. So of course I had to do some basic math to make that work. But at the end, after I got majority of that stuff working, you get to see like, hey, look at that. It starts rolling across the rows. Right now, I'm just doing it every time right now, like the outer rows after each one is completed. But I will update this to do it throughout as you progressing to the level. And yeah, but yeah, I did have some issues earlier, as you saw, with the material with fading in the cells. It wasn't completely fading in correctly, but I think it's after some modifications and getting them fixed and making it work correctly, and making sure the math was working, and everything ended up working just perfectly. Sweet. And yeah, and that's about it, guys. I got what I wanted to work on for this devlog. So as a quick recap, you got the rollers. I got the rollers working. That'll unveil those columns and make those columns playable. And the plants do their thing, right? Or like the sunflower shoots out shoots out sun, spits out sun and all that. I got the pea shooters to shoot its projectiles. I stole the origin, although the position is not in the correct place, but I'm not worried about that just yet. Um, let's see, the cherry bombs. Oops, I did not place them. The cherry bombs destroy all the zombies that are nearby it. We got mines that go inactive for a bit and then activate themselves. And once it's active, it goes back up, and this little pointing top starts blinking, saying that it's ready. So when the zombie gets nearby, it explodes. Can I actually drag a zombie here? Let's find out. Nope, it doesn't let me. For some reason, it's weird. It doesn't let me do zombie, but it can do other ones like cherry bomb. I don't get it. Why it doesn't work that way? Weird. Anyway, so yeah, so I have that. I got the snow peas to also shoot. And each of the peas have its own trails. I got the sun as well, working, collecting, and deducting from the actual sun. And yeah, I got a pretty good place where I want it to be. Next thing that I would like to start working is actually getting the zombies to actually function correctly. So they actually move. Let's look at the Trello board real quick. So I got this done. I can deduct sun. I track the sun that you collected. Let's look here. Actually, chompers don't chomp zombies yet, but mines come up and explode when the zombies are nearby. So I just need the chompers to work. That's probably the only thing I need to do, but I can't get it to work without the actual zombies being there. Though I could have actually just put a zombie in front of it and make it work. I think I'll just wait for the functionality for the zombies to come in, and then I can start working on that. So I'm gonna have to leave that in here. Plants don't take some damage yet. I haven't spawned zombies. Zombies don't do anything. Global sun is done. And yeah, I still have to do this other ones. Particle effects, there's still some more. Maybe tweak some that I already showed. Fix animations for the plants, the zombies. I still need to look into that. Like I said, I'm not an animator or any of that, so I apologize if at the end it doesn't look that great. If it doesn't look that great, I probably won't leave it out. I'm debating on it. And then update the lawn and just the visuals of the game. So first thing first though, I'm gonna work on the zombies, and then just go from there. Hopefully by I got majority of the actual gameplay working in the next devlog, and we're in a good place. And yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you guys have, give it a thumbs up. It does help me out a lot. And if you do want to see more of this stuff, feel free to subscribe to my channel. It's not necessary, but it does make me see that you guys are interested in it and seeing more of this stuff. And yeah, and if any feedback that you guys may have on anything that you saw here today, and feel free to post in the comments, let me know, and I can address them. Or maybe you got some ideas that you guys want me to add to this game, feel free to post in the comments. I'll definitely be looking, and I'll be commenting and replying to your comments if needed. So yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, and I'll see you guys next time. Signing out.